how would you define success?
I'm like, success is like finishing and getting that diploma. Like, that is success. But, after having this conversation, I would feel more successful and more fulfilled if I was approaching this with compassion and connection. I think compassion and connection have to be the number 1 and 2 things that are present for me to feel like this was a success.
That was Forest Melton back again, and I am Catherine Alonso. Welcome to the latest episode of Change and You. I am so excited you are here. This podcast is all about how you make change in your community and your life. This season is all about how you can overcome obstacles to change. And this episode is all about how you utilize your core values as a tool for tackling challenges in your work and your life. I am so incredibly grateful to Forest. This episode was kind of an experiment. This is the first time that I've had this conversation exactly this way in a podcast recording. He completely trusted me. He just sort of showed up and trusted me to see what was going to happen. And it was a really fascinating conversation. As always, Forest was completely open and vulnerable. If you have not seen the first episode with him, which was last week's episode, all about digging into what his core values are, I recommend that you go and listen to that one first. And then in this episode, we are digging into how does he use those core values to navigate challenges in his life. I loved the conversation. I hope that Forest found it helpful as well. And I really hope that you find it helpful. Don't forget that if you go to catherinealonso.com, there is a PDF that you can download, a worksheet that helps you work through what your core values are. And it is such a fantastic process. It has been life-changing for me. And if you care about change in your life, change in your community, it is absolutely a tool that you want at your disposal. So without any further ado, my completely enlightening conversation with the one and the only Forest Melton. Forest Melton, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Change and You.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited to be talking to you again. So to catch people up, last week we did a whole big brainstorming session around what your core values are. And now what we're going to do today is explore how you can utilize those core values to overcome and to approach obstacles or challenges in your life and in your work. So to catch us up, tell us a little bit about, in the 7 days since you and I last spoke, what you've been thinking about your core values and which core values we're going to be using for the activity we'll dig into today.
Ooh, yes. Okay. Core values, super interesting. I think we identified like between 5 and 7. Like, we came up with a pretty strong number, and I did a little bit of journaling, a little bit of reflecting, and I think four just came really, really easily. I couldn't even remember the other ones. So it'll be interesting to actually go back and listen to that audio at some point. But the 4 that I'm thinking are learning. And for learning is kind of like progress, like not progress. Learning is like critical thinking skills obtained, like continuing to gather skills in a critical thinking capacity that stretches my brain. Compassion is the next one. And compassion for me is kind of like intentionally like doing good or wanting the best for people. I would say like that either act of like volunteering or like going out and doing stuff, or just having that kind of love for humanity. More or less. That's what we're going with. Okay. Progress is the next one. And for me, progress is kind of like checking things off of a list. Like, I picture a checklist and like boxes are getting done. Like, we are getting things done. Like, it doesn't take like a smart person or a brave person or a strong person, but you're just like getting stuff done. And then connection for me is kind of like, any kind of quality time with humans, any kind of quality time with humans. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's right.
I love those. I love those. So quick recap, not necessarily in the same order that you just did them. Learning, connection, progress, and compassion. And then you defined them for us. And I'm so glad that you did define them for us, because I think I mentioned this last time, but no two human beings have the exact same definition of a value word as each other. And so a really important part of the process of figuring out your core values is to think, how is it defined for me? And a really great example, so one of my core values is also learning. And you defined it for yourself, I'm paraphrasing, but you defined it yourself as continually gathering skills through critical thinking. Is that right? That's roughly what you said?
I would say yes. Continuing to gather skills and tools doesn't have to necessarily. I mean, yeah, critical thinking is involved. I think I said critical thinking because I was trying to differentiate between like stretching your brain, and I guess that's inherent in learning. So maybe I'm being redundant.
Yeah. So my personal definition of learning doesn't contradict yours at all, but it emphasizes, different things. Like my definition of learning, I think, is something closer to experiencing. So definitely experiencing and reflecting. For me, that's my definition of learning. Experience and reflect, just continual process. And so that's a beautiful demonstration of why it matters to define your own values for yourself, because you say learning, connection, progress, compassion, and people listening are going to have their assumed definition of those words. And it doesn't matter one single bit that we have different definitions of these words when we're doing core values. What does matter is that you know how they're defined for yourself. Because when you know how they're defined, then you can use them more so than if you don't.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So before we jump in, I want to share another couple of things about core values and identifying your own core values. So usually if I was working with a group of people to identify their core values, and we went through the whole process from beginning to end, we start with what we did last week when we do the brainstorming. And then we go into about 4 or 5 different steps. And then at the end, we do what you and I are going to do today. So we're sort of leapfrogging to the end. And I want to leapfrog to the end because I want to demonstrate, because this season is all about overcoming obstacles. And so I want to demonstrate how you can utilize your core values to overcome obstacles. At the same time, I want to acknowledge that usually there's a lot more time built in for reflecting, defining, and fine-tuning your values. And as you go through that, you learn a lot more and you become a lot more clear on what your core values are. So this is more of an experiment. But so I wanted to share that. And then the other thing I wanted to share is why I feel so passionately about this idea of using your core values to overcome obstacles. And that is because I think you hear actually quite a lot about core values today. They're in our vernacular, particularly if you work in a business or a corporation. They likely have core values. You hear about this. I think we are hearing a lot about having them and doing things that are in alignment with your core values. Rarely do I hear people talking about using them as a tool. It's more something like you have and it defines who you are, but not really something that you can tangibly utilize. And in my experience, core values are this inbuilt toolkit for navigating challenges in your life, because they're so intrinsically linked to who you are as a person and what matters to you, that when you approach challenges through the lens of your core values, you are approaching challenges in a way that prioritizes your most important things, your most important values, your most important priorities. And so inherently, it's like having your perfectly custom made for you superhero toolkit. Like back to Power Rangers or any other like superhero kid thing. I wouldn't say I know very much about superheroes, but each superhero has their own superpower, right? And your core values are your superpowers. And so if you're overcoming obstacles using your superpowers, it stands to reason that you're going to be more effective at it because you're using the things that are these fine-tuned skills that you have. The other thing I love about utilizing core values as a tool for overcoming challenges is that when you do that, you kind of feel better immediately, even if the challenge that you're working on doesn't change, because you immediately are shifting your focus from what is wrong or missing to what you can do and what you have the power to focus on. And so it sort of puts you, I think oftentimes when things come up that are challenging in life, it's because we feel disempowered or disenfranchised. And thinking, how am I going to approach this through my core values immediately puts you back in the driver's seat. So that's why I love this so much.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was just thinking of the last thing you said of how problems can get so much better if you feel like there's something you can do about it. Yeah. And so that self-efficacy, that really lands with me. Mm-hmm. I would agree.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go through 3 different activities that help us explore how you can utilize your core values to overcome challenges and change. And so the first one, what is a goal that you have for yourself right now? Could be good, big, could be small, but something that you're hoping to achieve.
Well, I really hope to finish my PhD. It doesn't feel like it's going to happen, but it just feels so far away. Part of it is like I'm done with my coursework, so now it's just like they're like, all right, go create a research project, and it feels like skills I do not yet have.
Right, a lot of learning to be done. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so if I told you that you could complete your PhD within a year, let's say, or within 2 years, like shooting star, fingers clicked, like it's happened, it's done. But to do so, you would have had to have violate your core values. So maybe you've done it without connecting with human people, or maybe you've had to be unkind to somebody, violating your compassion value, or maybe you didn't learn a single thing. Like maybe you researched something you already knew. So you didn't, it was quick, it was easy, but you didn't learn anything. How do you think that would feel?
It sounds terrible. It sounds like a complete waste of time, and I feel like I'd be way more miserable, and I wouldn't even want I'd be like, fine, give me the paperwork, but this sucks. Yeah, that's right. Terrible.
Okay. So put that in your back pocket. All right. So now imagine that you're going to keep moving forward, pursuing your PhD. No guaranteed outcome, no guaranteed timeline. If you were going to continue to pursue your PhD, you're going to do the research project in alignment with core values. So those core values, learning, progress, compassion, learning, are prioritized. What are some of the things you might do, some of the activities that you might do as you approach this PhD? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If not, I can break it down differently.
What I think I'm hearing is like, how would you kind of be being as a person, like moving through this towards this goal? Mm-hmm. And I think I would, if I were to stay in alignment with my core values, I think I would really be focused on learning how to do the thing that I don't yet know how to do. And I think I would also be intentional about like connecting with people like other fellow students and like maybe the end result of who the research is going to be about, like trying to integrate like why I'm doing this at all. I think that is something that I would be intentional about. And then I think, I mean, the compassion piece is really interesting because my research is in health disparities. So I think giving this project a lot of compassion and having compassion for like the people I'm doing this for and like the work, like the results of the research, what it's going to result in and how that's going to help people, like staying in alignment with that and remembering that, I think that would make the journey, all those things would make the journey so much better, even if it took like significantly longer than I had hoped. I think it would still be it would still be good and nice, and I would feel fulfilled, and I would feel like it was time well spent instead of like, oh, what a waste of my life when I think about the previous context.
Yeah, the previous example. Well, and then maybe another thing that might extend to is just compassion for yourself. That doing a PhD is really hard. That's why not very many people do it, and it's not linear, and there's a lot of stuff completely outside of your control. And so, compassion for yourself, for the journey to go whatever way it's going to go. Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, that would be really helpful. I'm glad you're saying that. I'm going to write that down. That would be a game changer, actually. I don't think I think it's a lot easier for me to have compassion for others than myself. Yeah. So I'm like, well, no, for me, I should have all this stuff together and I should be working harder and I should have this figured out. But other people, like, you know, they're just humans. I'm like, not, I guess. Right. Those are humans. I'm myself. Yeah, exactly. Well, and when I'm doing values works with groups, I have a whole section about like, okay, now how do you give these core values to yourself? Because we tend to be very good at giving them to other people and not giving them to ourselves. And things like compassion, kindness, care, support, usually more often than not, when somebody holds one of those things as a core value, also things like justice, equity, they give them to other people in droves, but they leave themselves out of it.
That makes sense. Yes, I connect with that statement. Yeah. That's definitely me.
Yeah. Okay, so then we think about these two ways. There's it's definitely achieved, it's definitely done. It's done in undermining all of the things that matter to you the most. Or is there's no guarantee, who knows what the ending is, but it's done in a way that aligns with all the things that matter to you the most. And you've already said which one you'd rather do. Yes. Yeah, there's no comparison between those two examples. Yeah. It's not a hard choice. No, it's not even a little bit hard. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the helpful things about this framing is it takes the pressure off of the outcome. That when we have goals, we tend to get very focused on what the outcome is and when the outcome occurs. And so when we get very focused on outcomes like that, it can tend to enable us to de-emphasize the process. And what we just did was we sort of flipped it. We took the outcome off the table, really, like no guarantee, we don't know. And we really, really emphasized how you're going to get there. And that tends to be, when you're actually living it, way more fulfilling. Yeah. So how's this landing with you in terms of thinking, just how you're feeling about this goal that you have of completing a PhD?
It really feels kind of like a small weight has been lifted. I say small because I'm like, there's still like the other side of my mind is like, hey, don't relax too much. Yeah. But part of me is like, wow, like I see like another way to live. Like I can see something over there that is really exciting. Like that would be so cool if I could focus more on being in alignment than like driving really hard towards this outcome, because I've been doing that and it's been miserable. It's been miserable for everybody. Like my girlfriend's not happy. She's looking at me like, you are not a happy person. And then so she's not feeling good about that. My committee chairs are frustrated, that are also frustrated. We're all frustrated. So I think that if I could step into that and like live those values, I think the outcome, really becomes irrelevant. I think that would be awesome. I like that. I want that. How do I do that?
Well, and where is the misery and the frustration coming for you right now?
So it is September 2023. I finished classes last May 2022. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have this done by the end of 2022. And my committee chair folks were like, that's just kind of too much. It's too fast. It's too aggressive. And I'm like, I kind of know it's aggressive, but in my head, I need to be aggressive or I will wait to the last minute. So I need like a fire underneath me. I need like an aggressive goal, or there's no sense of urgency for me. And so we've been having this battle between like me being aggressive and motivated, and them being realistic. And so I'm like, I know it's realistic. I know you're probably right, but my brain doesn't work the way your brain works. And so, now we are like about a year later and haven't done much this year. I think part of it is because I was like, part of it was like, man, I missed my kind of like arbitrary deadline. 2, I didn't see progress. We talked about the check boxes. There was none of that happening. So I'm frustrated. I didn't feel like I was learning anything. I could just look at these core values, and I didn't feel like I was receiving any compassion. I got like some tough love. And I was just like, screw this. Why am I even doing this? Like, this is dumb. This is silly. And so, but within the last, I would say like 30 days, I've like reconnected with my chair and minor chair and been like, hey guys, like this isn't working for me. Like I'm really at the end of my rope here. Like this is not fun. Also I like my job. So like, do I even need to do this? And we've kind of had like a reconnecting. I've talked to some other friends and family. That's so interesting how the values just come in. I reconnected with my humans that were important to me, and it really helped me like remember like why I was doing this, and that I could, and like, why I'm doing this, and that I could do this. And it really got me back onto the horse. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'm making some progress, but I don't want to go back to that like outcome driven scenario where I'm like clashing with my outcomes with my outcomes with what their outcomes are supposed to be, and like not having a good time, not learning anything, not making progress. That was it was pretty frustrating. I was having a hard time.
Yeah. Well, so we're going to come back to this, I think. Okay. So, well, I like this is a really great example to work this through. So thank you for sharing that. Hold that thought.
Yes.
Okay, so next question. Think back whenever, just within the last however many years, about a challenge that you faced in your life or your work that you feel like you handled pretty well.
So the challenge was I met a girl and I thought she was cute. She went to U of A, so it was a match made in heaven. But we worked together, and she didn't want like a office thing happening. So we started dating, and it was like really difficult because she was just like very not emotionally intelligent, and so that was the challenge. The challenge was we were like early 30s. She was probably like 33, and I was probably like 34, and she had never really had like a serious relationship. So she was very like it was a very one-sided relationship. Like I was doing all this stuff. I was like buying flowers, and I was like, she lived way up north, and I would like drive 30 minutes to her house, and we would go hang out with friends. I would drive her 30 minutes back, and I would drive 30 minutes back to my house, and it was a whole production. Like she was very much like a stereotypical like princess. But the reason I bring it up is because I have a hard time with like confrontation, and especially confrontation with like women that I'm romantically wanting their approval from. And so I thought I did it. I did the best job I've ever done in my life at being like, hey, I didn't like that. Like, this is not okay with me. Like, I love you, and please don't ever do that again. Whereas I feel like in relationships before that, I was pretty much like, nah, it's fine. Like, I'm not going to say anything. It wasn't that big a deal. And whereas this time I felt really aligned, and I was like, I know that I can say this, and her reaction has nothing to do with me. Like, I know I can, if I'm speaking my truth, then, and I can like tell her and acknowledge her and validate her and do all those things, I should still be able to say how I feel and like set these boundaries, for lack of a better word. And I thought it was excellent. We broke up. We did break up. Whenever we broke up, I was like, I did all that I could do. Like, there was no like second thoughts or regrets or like, man, I should have tried this. I was like, I told her exactly how I felt. I was very kind about it. I told her 3 times over the course of a year, and like, you know, like the 4th time, I just had to head out. So yeah, I was really proud of myself.
That's awesome. So when you look at that through the core values lens, what do you think was present for you in the way you approached it?
I think there was a lot of compassion for myself. Yes. And I think there was also compassion for her in a way that was like, I understand maybe you just don't know these things, and I'm assuming you're not being like a mean person or mean-spirited person. I'm assuming this is all just like ignorance. Like, you're probably you just don't know, and I need to tell you those things. So probably like connection going on there too. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, and I think I would even say a little bit of learning, because I was still like, I think I had understood some of these concepts intellectually about like communication, and like communicating, not being a sugarcoater and not being like a people pleaser sugarcoater, but it was really like me practicing that in like what felt like pretty high stakes for me. Yeah, so I think those are the elements that stand out the most to me. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, can you think of a time you had a challenge and you handled it really badly?
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely think of a time.
What happened?
I don't on the scale of badly though. This is probably only like 5 out of 10. I'm sure I could think of something worse, but it makes me giggle when I think about it. But I used to work in this kind of corporate setting where it was like a hospital, and there was always food. Like they would have meetings with doctors, and then they would just like put the food in the thing, and people would be like, "There's food in the thing," and this happened every Friday without fail. But then like also during the week sometimes, and so at one point there was like this very wonderful brunch situation going on in the kitchen. Somebody's like, there's like breakfast. It was like eggs and bacon and all this cool stuff. Someone's like, there's food in the kitchen. Help yourselves to brunch. So we're all pretty excited. Our office was right next to the kitchen. So we're like, cool, we're going to get some breakfast. And so there was this woman that I worked with who, like, we didn't have beef, but she was kind of bossy. She bossed everybody around. It wasn't just me. She was like a lot older than everybody else, and she had kids, and I think she thought we were her kids. And so I'm the largest man most people know, and so like I had a pretty generous like plate. There was still plenty of food in the kitchen, but I had like a Forest-sized portion, and I'm like walking back to my desk all excited, and she was like, "You got too much food." And I was like, I cannot believe this is happening to me right now at work. That someone is like, I went straight to 10 because I'm just like, I can't believe I have to deal with this. And I was like, I was combative. She was like, you got too much food. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Like, do you want to like come measure everybody's food? Because like, how do you suppose I'm supposed to solve this problem? Who gets to decide who gets how much food? I'm like giving her like the business in this cubicle, and like everyone is like so uncomfortable. But like, I felt like I was defending myself. I like got to my desk and people emailed me and like they were like, "Yeah, oh my god, I can't believe that happened. She sucks." And but I could have handled that better. Definitely could have handled it better. There was no compassion.
This is good. There was no compassion. So you anticipated my question. So through the values lens, what was missing? There was no compassion.
No
what
compassion.
else?
There was no connection. I was not trying to learn a thing. Yeah, absolutely. The opposite of progress. Oh man. Yeah.
So that demonstrates, I think, interesting. These were really two great examples for us. It's like we prepped for this, which we didn't, because the outcome was similar in that you broke up, right? Like you didn't. It's not like and now she's my person. Like the relationship ended. And then there was, this conflict with the other person. The thing that was different in how you felt that you handled it was the input, not the output. It was, it was the process. And remember that values drive thoughts, actions, and feelings. And so it was in the first example, you were being driven by your core values.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second example, you were not. And so when I ask you, think of a time that you handled something well and think of a time when you handled something badly, the answers you gave me had nothing to do with outcome and everything to do with input.
Fascinating. That is so interesting. Wow. I never thought about that. That is totally true.
So let's come back to your PhD.
Okay.
So here you are. You have just reconnected with your advisors. You've just been thinking it sounds like you're sort of at a crossroads a little.
Yeah.
That the path forward is undetermined, but you want there to be a path forward.
Yeah.
This is a goal you have and it's important to you. Okay, so let me ask you this. When it comes down to your PhD and completing your PhD and doing this next piece, which is the research piece, how would you define success? if you win at this, what is happening?
Ooh, man, that is an interesting question. It's funny. I'm like, success is like finishing and getting that diploma. Like that is success. But so that's one measure for sure. And then, but after having this conversation, I really feel like it won't be it would be so hard to, it would be more, I would feel more successful and more fulfilled if I was approaching this with compassion and connection. I think compassion and connection have to be the number 1 and 2 things that are present for me to feel like this was a success. Because if I finish and I get this degree and then I'm like a jaded, angry, compassionless person, I would not call that a success.
Right.
Yes.
So compassion and connection are prioritized in how you approach it. Is there a timeline attached to your definition of success?
I would love, the timeline is soft, but I would love to be done by the end of next year. Really, I would love to be done by summer, but I'm trying not to eat my words.
Well, so let me offer you an alternative maybe, because knowing that you set this, so what I really heard when you were talking about what happened after you finished your coursework was that the reason you set the aggressive timeline was to self-motivate. Mm-hmm. And that makes perfect sense, knowing that progress is one of your core values and that you define progress as checking the list.
Yep.
And so what if it isn't, knowing that what didn't work for you before was giving yourself a deadline, that giving yourself a deadline and then failing to meet that deadline created quite a lot of angst in you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we want to set ourselves up for success, right? So maybe if we know that one of your core values is progress, maybe there isn't a timeline. Maybe instead it's about consistent progress.
Yes, that would fit the bill completely. Yep.
And then I think you need to define for yourself what consistent progress means. You could be like one big milestone a month, one big milestone a quarter, whatever, but try to, knowing that boxing yourself into something caused you more harm than good.
Yep. Already.
Learn from that. And in this next bit, do it differently. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's why the compassion connection part is so strong, clear for me in this second go round. But the progress, I think you're right. I think redefining it as consistent progress. What I started kind of doing was, well, not kind of. What I've been doing lately is trying to commit 4 hours a day. So I have a timer, and when I start doing PhD stuff, I start the timer, and I'm like, I'm going to hit 4 hours. So even if I don't come up with a research manuscript in a week, then I still feel like I'm making progress.
Right.
Side note, I was thinking about, I should have said this in the beginning, but the progress thing is so actually very intense because I have a spreadsheet that I keep every day that I have 10 things that I'm trying to do, and I every day I'm like, did I journal today? Yes. And I'm like, yeah, check. Did I meditate? Yeah. And then I check all these boxes, and then yeah, so I'm it's really, Jessica, my girlfriend, she's like, I could never, your brain is broken, you shouldn't do that. but but it's really nice. I like it a lot.
I can so relate to it. I don't have a spreadsheet, but I have my own version of that. And, like one of my core values is movement. The way I define movement is the idea of progressing. So, there's sort of similar, different definitions, different words, but similar concepts. And I completely relate to it. It is a need that I have, and I have tried, trust me, I have tried to divorce myself from this need, because I do recognize intellectually that it's stupid. But it causes me quite a great deal of satisfaction.
Yes.
And it doesn't really get in my way other than other people thinking I'm crazy.
Yeah, yes. I am with you. I'm like, I know that this isn't necessarily like making me a better person, perhaps, but it does. I do love to check those boxes, and I can get really consistent at something if I know I have to check the box. And also, if I screw up a bunch of days in a row, I'm like, you keep messing this one column up. So it's been helpful in that way.
And then you look for the lesson.
Yes.
You're like, what?
Yes.
What? Your spreadsheet, it absolutely drives progress, but it drives learning too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Also, a little bit of compassion in there, because I had a goal at one point that was like, read 30 minutes a day, or I think it was workout. It was like workout an hour a day. And then I was like, listen, it's just not going to happen. I had to be like, hey, it's fine. It's not like a knock against you. Just make it 10 minutes. Just start with something small. This isn't happening for you. And it's not your fault. It's just, you got to start somewhere. So yeah, that too.
Yeah. So there's compassion there too. And that compassion, as you continue to do your PhD, is going to be really important, because you are going to have goals that you're going to miss. You don't have control over everything. So it sounds like, in terms of how you are moving forward from this point to your goal, which is finishing your PhD, getting that diploma, having prioritized compassion and connection in your approach, and having seen consistent progress over time. That's the gold medal that we're shooting for.
Yeah.
So thinking about your core values, what are some other sort of next steps that you could take in pursuing this gold medal goal?
Okay. I think the immediate next step I could take is, in the spirit of progress, figuring out how I'm going to measure progress, how I'm going to incorporate consistent progress. What does that look like? Yeah. And I think also with the learning, getting clear and being clear on what I'm trying to learn. Because part of it is I have been thinking about that lately too, so it's kind of convenient. But I got really lost in the get to the end stage, get to this end goal.
Yeah.
And I had a aha moment at some point that I was like, but what am I after this is done? What do I do with this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I was like, wait, there's a way that I can do this degree that is actually going to be helpful. I can use this information. This is, if I learn it, I can still design the approach, since we haven't done much yet, where I'm learning something that I can use right now in my daily life at my job. And that got me really excited. And I was like, oh, snap. Yeah. Let's do that. Instead of beforehand, I felt like I was trying to execute this project that this man wanted to have done that I was going to do for him. And I was just like, ugh. So yeah, no learning there, because I don't want to learn how to be a statistician. Like that's not, I don't want that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Next steps also, I think I've thought about in the connection piece, like it's been hard before the pandemic. I was in classes physically with people, and I saw the same people, and I had friends. And so now that it's post-pandemic, it's not post-pandemic. Now the pandemic is, I don't know how to word that, but 3 years out from 2020, and I'm no longer in classes, I don't have that same kind of like connection. And I think reestablishing that or something with fellow peers that are going through similar, that are also in class or also on the similar track for me, I think that would be really motivating as well and fulfilling, to be like, I think I have felt really alone. So I think that would really help. And then the compassion is like, I feel like that's all around. Like that needs to be in everything. Yeah, I think two ways, like remembering to be compassionate for myself in this like really rigorous thing that I'm trying to accomplish, but then also like, this is going to help people, like remembering this is going to help people. This is for a cause. This is for like people who are disenfranchised, and it's really going to have an impact. I think that like staying connected to that compassion, I think is going to really, really help. All those things will be game changers. That would be the gold standard.
That would be the gold medal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love that so much. And one of the great things about the action steps you just brainstormed is they're very much next steps, not like a whole work plan. And I have learned, because I'm a planner and I feel like you and I are cut from the same cloth in this way, that what I used to do when I had a big goal is like figure it all out. And I'd be like, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And then set deadlines, and I'd have like a 1 year or a 2 year work plan for how I was going to get something done.
Yes.
And what I learned pretty quickly as to why that didn't, there's two reasons that doesn't work. One, something unexpected comes up, you get COVID, everybody gets COVID. So, you know, something happens, you get a new project, something happens in your family, and it throws you off immediately. So that's problem number one. But problem number two, and this was more powerful for me, was that when you do that, when you map it all out, you are removing your ability and your freedom to learn and set the plan as you go. So if you've decided, I'm going to do steps 1, 2, 3, 4, what if when you're doing 1, you learn something that suggests that your step 2 should actually be something else?
Yeah. Whoa.
And so now when I'm trying to do something big and difficult like a PhD, I don't do that, and I just let myself think about what is my next step. Now, what I love what you've done is you have a next step in each value. And so maybe you just do those 4, those, and then you ask yourself again, okay, now what, and now what, and now what?
Yeah, that's really, that really connects, that really lands for me, because I feel like I definitely had that kind of locked in tunnel vision a year ago, and I was like, it's going to happen like this, and you know, if it doesn't happen like that, we're just going to push through and we're just going to make it happen like that. And there were other things that occurred, like for example, my minor chair, who was like a really good friend of mine. So you have like the way the structure is, you're supposed to like find some people, like 4 professors to be on your committee. And there's like a major chair who's like, this is the project. And then there's the minor chair who's like, hey, it's like a side mission project. And so my minor chair was like, when I was getting towards the end of my goal, like it was like November, she was like, hey, I want you to do a literature review. for the minor. And that really was, I was like, I didn't account for this in my plan. Like, I think that was another thing that took the steam out. I was like, I can't do that. Like, that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit, man. And so, but it's going to be helpful. I'm going to learn so much more. In the long run, it's like absolutely what I need to be doing. But I had a hard time accepting that because I was like, I'm like, the plan, like the whole plan has to be thrown away now because this is going to add like 6 months at least to what we had going on. So, yeah, I like that. Just thinking of the next step. Yeah.
Well, and of these steps that you've brainstormed now, here's the magic. Here's the most important thing that we are going to talk about in this whole entire conversation is that from this point where you have these next steps that are born from your core values, you literally can't go wrong. Whatever happens in your PhD now, you literally cannot go wrong because no matter what the desired outcome is or no matter what the actual outcome is, you have been true to yourself along the way. And so it's like the breakup. Like, even if like worst case scenario, it takes a long time or for whatever reason, it never happens, it doesn't matter because you will have connection, compassion, learning and progress baked in every step.
I love that. That's crazy. That's like kind of the game changer. I'm like, maybe I should live my whole life like this.
Well, I think you're pretty close, but that's why I love core values work. Because it makes such a difference. And it's this little set of words that are just for you that you get to use. And they make life so much better.
Yeah.
Simply because you are prioritizing the things that are most important to you.
Yeah. I love that. I really, really love that. Yeah. I guess now I'm like thinking of like, man, this was an outcome that isn't what I wanted, but I was in my core values. So I don't even think about that. And I'm thinking of other instances where I was like, I was not in my core values at all, and that keeps me up at night when I think about that situation. So
I can so relate to that.
Yes, I love that. This is helpful.
So relate to that. Forrest, I cannot thank you enough for just doing this and going on this crazy experiment with me and telling us all your stories. And now you're going to get all these listeners who are like, what's going on with your PhD?
Yeah, I know this is good. I need the follow-up. I need people to harass me because that is one of my, I think that's like connection. That's connection for me. Yes, that will be helpful. No, awesome. But thank you for inviting me. I really, I had no idea what to expect. I was like, oh, I'm just going to be hanging out with Catherine for a while. That's going to be a good time. We always have great conversations. So I'm glad it also like may have changed my life a little bit. Like, this is really cool.
Oh my gosh, you're the best. You're the best. I'm so grateful for you. Thanks so much, Forrest.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you back, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Isn't Forrest incredible? I am so grateful to him for showing up, being open, being vulnerable, and testing this thing out with me. I've never quite done it exactly this way before for a podcast, and it worked so well. And I just love that he was so open and so honest and shared his soul and his life with us. And hopefully what you were able to see is that you can really utilize your core values for navigating change in your life. Knowing what your core values are and just writing them down somewhere is nowhere near as helpful than really using them and referring to them day in, day out. And they are just always there for you to help you figure out how you can move forward when you're feeling stuck. Don't forget that if you go to catherinealonzo.com, there is a PDF that you can download, which will help you start to work through what your core values are. I will tell you that figuring out what your core values are is a process. It is not something that happens overnight or in an hour, but you can get started right away. Grab a friend, do it together. It is so much fun. And I'm so grateful that you were here. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Change and You.